Today I'm reviewing The Sims 4 Vampires. This is a part of a series where I review every pack for The Sims 4, including all of the older ones. I'll upload a brand new video every single Monday. Yes, there is a playlist, links in the bio. The Sims 4 Vampires is about creating your own vampires, using supernatural powers, and living in the world of Forgotten Hollow. Starting off with the cast, so there's a separate cast mode for both human form and vampire form. Weirdly, you can't actually change the clothing options between each one, but you can change their features. So if you want to make them look more scary and menacing in vampire form, you can, whereas in their regular form you can make them look a lot more human and natural. I do think it's a bit silly that you can't change your outfits between each form. I would have liked my Sims to have quite a nice looking regular outfit for their humanoid form, but for their vampire form look really scary. One thing I will say is that this cast contains a lot of miscellaneous features, specifically makeup things for your face just to make them a lot more scary. It's got some really cool teeth that come with the pack as well. I would say the cast for this pack suits the theme perfectly. It is a very dark gothic theme. It's a strange mixture of like traditional vampires but also being a little bit kooky and crazy. They could have gone down the route of like Edward Cullen sexy vampire, but I'm really glad that they actually went down a much darker route with it. I think it looks really cool. This pack, by the way, also comes with the best tights that we have in the game. I will say the cast for this pack is very niche, and if you just want to make normal looking Sims, this cast probably isn't for you, but if you love the gothic theme, I think it's absolutely perfect. Unfortunately, there's not really much for any non-adult Sims. There's literally nothing for toddlers, and there's only one suit for both male and female children, rendering it a very top-heavy pack, unfortunately. But for what it's worth, guys, this pack sticks to a theme, and I really love the theme. I think all of the outfits work really well together, so we're starting off strong with an 8 out of 10 for the cast. Moving on to the build buy, this pack actually contains 7 pre-made rooms, which is a lot. The rooms are not the worst. The pre-made houses are also not the worst. One of the houses is actually full of garlic, so it's for a house basically for a human Sim that wants to ward off vampires, which I think is quite cool. Then you've got Vlad's house, who is basically the Sims version of Dracula. His house looks really nice, actually. The build buy for this pack is one of the best, in fact, maybe the best build buy I've ever seen for any Sims 4 pack. Just with the cast, it is extremely gothic, and the theme works so well together. It contains one of the best kitchen sets in the game. It comes with a really wide variety of swatches for most things, and the best of all, it comes with a lot of stuff for both indoors and outdoors. You could honestly use this pack to build so many things. I definitely recommend it for Victorian themed builds and for gothic and haunted builds. I normally use a build buy for this pack when I'm building an old manor house or something. It also comes with a lot of creepy decorations like cobwebs and things and scratches in the walls, just to make places look a lot more derelict if you're into that. And all of the decorations are extremely thorough and well thought out. There is honestly one of everything in this pack. You've got a kitchen, you've got a living room, you've got a dining room, a bathroom. It honestly comes with so much stuff. The build buy of this pack, honestly guys, is amazing. If you're a builder, I 100% recommend it. It's getting a 10 out of 10 for the build buy. Moving on to the world, this world is called Forgotten Hollow. It's a very dark world and misty world. The whole point of it being like that is because obviously vampires get uncomfortable and may die in sunlight, so it is a very dark world with a long night cycle. There are 5 lots, which is a standard size for a game pack. However, I will say the world is extremely small and there's not much going on. Weirdly, it has a really huge town square, but there's not really much going on in it. Also, there's a little pier, like an outlook thing, but again, there's not much going on. I wouldn't say the world is one of the best. In fact, I'd probably say it's one of the worst game pack worlds that we've ever had, and I just feel like it has too much empty space with not really that much going on. There are also random NPCs walking around from other worlds. I actually saw the Towny Bob pancakes, which just completely ruined the immersion, rendering it not really secluded, which is what it's supposed to be. Even though the world does fit a theme, unfortunately, it's just extremely lifeless and monotonous, and it doesn't really feel like it has any character. So for that, unfortunately, the world is getting a 4 out of 10. Moving on to the most important part, which is the gameplay. Obviously, you can become a vampire via cast, or a vampire can turn your sim into one. In order to do so, you have to have a high enough relationship with them to do so, and then ask them to turn you. It comes with a vampire master aspiration, but unfortunately, this acts like a tutorial and relates to gaining the vampire lore skill. It's a weird skill, but it allows you to gain the ability to cure vampirism at max level. It also allows you to grow plasma fruit for a vegan vampire, and the tutorial is also more suited for regular human Sim Sims looking to turn into a vampire rather than actual vampires. Obviously, vampires are vampires, so they live forever. Their sleep, hunger, and bladder needs are replaced with thirst and vampire energy. Vampire energy is like sleep, but it depletes faster in the sun, and they can also gain it via meditating. We then have the thirst need, which is replenished by drinking sim plasma, eating plasma fruit, or having plasma bags, whether you want your sim to be a vegan or a full-on cannibal or a moral cannibal with the plasma bags. In order to get plasma from human sims, you can either compel them for a drink, or you can just ask them if you have a high enough relationship level. Vampires are affected by garlic and will receive a negative moodlet and cannot use vampire powers if they're around it. So if you are a human sim and you want to keep them away, that's the way to do it. Sometimes vampire sims do turn up at sim doors. It is an extremely annoying thing because if you're not in the vampire world and just in a regular sim world like Willow Creek, sometimes vampires do turn up on your door and it is extremely annoying. Unfortunately, it cannot be turned off in the settings, but you can use garlic to prevent it. I actually forced my vampire sim to live in a garlic house at first, and it made the vampire way too distressed to drink any plasma. So that is probably what you're going to have to do if you do own this pack. Vampires actually have a skill tree system in this pack. Basically, you get skill points by doing vampire things. Once you have enough skill points, you can take on various different skills that affect your vampire's super abilities. Vampires' abilities at max level can do honestly so many things. This includes depriving the needs of others, mesmerizing sims so they can't move, changing their emotions to anything, appearing more alluring, detecting personality traits of other sims. There is honestly so much stuff when it comes to vampire powers. Although interestingly, every single time you take on a few vampire powers, you actually have to accept also a hindrance to your vampire known as a weakness. You have to select one of these, so you can't not have it, and one of these weaknesses are basically something that negatively affects your vampire. For example, a guilty drinker weakness will make your sim feel bad for drinking from a sim without permission. Sleep of the undead means your vampire will only be able to sleep in coffins, or they can have an undead aura, which makes it incredibly difficult to gain relationships with other sims because you'll make them uncomfortable. I think it's a great touch because you don't want them to be too overpowered, and it is nice that there is some balance and challenge to it. I will say though, a lot of the interactions and supernatural abilities for a vampire don't really have that many unique animations. Instead, they just have like a green aura flowing from them onto another sim, and it gets a bit samey after a while. Vampires do have a unique fast run, and they can also teleport as a bat or in mist. I would say though, however, most of the special effects look pretty cool. Yes, you can woohoo in a coffin. You can also woohoo in bat form with another vampire. The pack comes with a pipe organ, which is a brand new skill, so it's not just the piano skill, it's actually a brand new one, and it works like any other musical instrument. You can make songs, you can get tips from it, you can do it as a career, etc., which is pretty cool. The gameplay is definitely very fun to mess around with, but I do think it lacks a lot of challenge. Yeah, it's fun messing around with the vampire abilities at first, but once you've done it, you've basically done it all and there's nothing left to do. There's no real unique challenge to be a vampire, especially without any meaningful aspirations as a vampire. It just seems a little bit meaningless, and you're just running around doing all these horrible things, changing another sim's moodlet to inspired with your vampire ability. But why are you doing that? There's just not that much meaning to the abilities themselves, and don't get me wrong, it is really fun to mess around with, but it just gets a little bit tedious after a while. There's also absolutely no gameplay for kids and toddlers and teens that's unique. This makes the pack incredibly annoying for family players, because I personally like the idea of a vampire family. We've all seen the Addams Family. I think it's one of the most fun things about the Vampires pack, the idea of having a full-on vampire family, but there's not much to do with it, unfortunately. Having said that, I do recognize that it is a fun pack, and it is actually very, very in-depth, one of the most in-depth game packs we have for The Sims 4, and because of that, it is getting a 7 out of 10 for gameplay. The Sims 4 is a buggy game, so we have to look at performance issues. As I said before, vampires have a very, very fast running ability, but it actually didn't work for me every single time I tried the interaction. But in general, the pack mostly works, so it's getting a 9 out of 10 for performance. For cross-pack compatibility, vampires interact differently with all occults, especially werewolves. In The Sims 4, werewolves and vampires actually have some kind of feud between them, so if a vampire actually drinks werewolf blood, they actually feel really disgusted afterwards and have a negative moodlet. It's also completely compatible with Get Together, and you can create vampire groups using the pack. Although I do wish wish there were more interesting interactions with werewolves, especially seeing that the game hints at some deep lore between them, but there's not actually really that much going on other than a supernatural smackdown, which is basically a special fighting animation between them. I also wish that perhaps, for example, there were some more potions available with Realm of Magic that could be used with vampires. I also wish perhaps there may have been some fun kind of vampire holiday tradition with the Seasons Pack, but I do understand that's pushing it. In general, I would say it's okay for cross-pack compatibility, but it could have gone a little bit further, so it's just getting a 7 out of 10 for that. This is a part of the review where I give my personal opinion plus an overall conclusion of the pack. So I am giving this pack a total of 7 out of 10. Many of you were probably expecting me to give the pack a better score because I've spoken really highly about it before. I think if the world was a lot more in depth and it had a lot more challenge, then it would have been a lot better. For what it's worth, I do really love the vampire pack, and with some imagination, it can be a really great addition to your game. If you're a builder though, I would say this pack is a must. It's my favorite build pack of all time. It's more so just a gameplay pack to mess around with more than a full-on compelling experience. Compel, vampires, compel, compelling pack. See what I did there? Make sure you save my playlist full of brutally honest reviews. I upload them every single Monday. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.